Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's demo for Macola 10, a single solution to automate, manage, and grow your business. My name is Nick Mears, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager. And I just want to thank you because I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you sharing some of it with us today. Now, that said, I'd like to introduce our two presenters. Our first presenter is Dan Griffin, who is part of Macola's senior leadership team. As Director of Product Management and Product Marketing, Dan guides the vision of the Macola product line and serves as one of the primary representatives of the Macola brand. Our second presenter is Steve Featherston, who's in pre-sales. Steve has been with Exact for 4 years, having recently moved to pre-sales within the last 9 months. Prior to that, Steve managed the implementation of Macola for many of Exact's customers. Prior to Exact, he worked 16 years in 3 different companies, all which used Macola. These companies range from manufacturers of RF communications equipment to commercial kitchen equipment to import-export distribution facilities. Before this, Steve owned his own business for 22 years in the consumer electronics industry. With that said, I'd like to hand this off to Dan to get us started today.
All right. Thanks, Nick. So I'm just going to do the easy stuff here. I'm going to turn it over to Steve for the hard stuff. And by the easy stuff, I mean I want to get you introduced to what Macola is as a product and from the value that it can bring to your business. So we'll talk about who uses Macola, why Macola is different, and we'll also talk about how Macola can help you. So let's just dive right in here and talk about who uses Macola. Well, primarily the companies that use the Macola product are either manufacturing or distribution companies. So that can be just about anything, especially those that are in what we think of as discrete manufacturing. So that can be metals, it can be household goods, it can be food and beverage, it can be injection molding, it can be industrial machinery. If you're in that space, creating something in a manufacturing environment, then you're probably a good candidate for us. And we have thousands upon thousands of customers who've used Macola to solve their needs. Now, from a size perspective, we typically target what we think of as the small and medium business space. And so for us, that means anywhere from about 20, which would be a really small company, up to about 10,000 employees. And that doesn't mean you buy 20 licenses for 20 people. Usually what we see is companies buy anywhere from about 25% to maybe up to a high of about 50%. So if they have 100 employees, maybe they're buying 25, 35, 50, something like that, licenses. And of course, we can explain to you what those licenses do and how you might want to implement that in your business. Now, from a geography perspective, primarily we focus on the Americas, and the U.S. being our dominant footprint, certainly, but with Canada and Latin America being growing markets for us as well. Now, we think about who relies on Macola. Well, all kinds of companies. I've got a few here, and I kind of love and hate this slide at the same time. And one of the things that we see is, I use the slide, I say I love it and I hate it because these are companies that you might recognize, but at the same time, it may not be representative because a lot of our companies, a lot of our customers are ones that you don't recognize. They're companies that are behind the scenes, companies that feed into the supply chain. So, maybe you've heard of Simple Green, but maybe you haven't heard of the other 95% of our customers who make something for the supply chain. So, like I said, I love it, I hate it. I love it because people recognize some of the names, but not always the most representative of our customer group. Now, if I go on to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about industry recognition. Frost & Sullivan, and I've told them this because they give out their awards in retrospect. So in January of 16, so about a year ago from now, we received a Best Practices Award from Frost & Sullivan for the prior year. And so they do theirs like, for the year that just completed. So in January of 16, they gave us this award for for 15 for food and beverage. I know of a couple other awards that are coming up, and I'm not at liberty to talk about those, but I think this slide is going to be even more exciting as we start to garner some industry recognition for the work that we've done in 2016, and I know of a few that we're up for as well to be considered for in 17. So I think we're going to start to really have a lot of accolades as Macola 10 now is 2 years into the market, and we've really changed the way that Macola does ERP. Going on to the next slide, we're going to do a quick poll for you guys here because I'm curious to know what you see as the greatest challenge facing your business. And Nick's going to put that up as a poll and let you guys make a choice there. What do you see as your greatest challenge?
We'll give a couple more moments here to allow everyone to cast a vote. Just go ahead and you can vote on your screen.
Looks like we've got a pretty clear winner there. We'll give it a couple more seconds, and all right, let's end it there. So pretty clear winner as Nick puts up the results. Managing processes, making those processes more efficient is our winner, and almost half of the votes went to that, and 32% went to controlling processes and systems. So that's interesting. That's actually pretty much in line with what we see that from our customers, that a lot of this is not just about taking orders. It's about finding efficiencies in the business, controlling processes. We actually do a different webinar from time to time that will rotate into the sequence where we talk about creating a method out of the chaotic systems that you have now. And so what do we call that, Nick? Controlling the chaos or something like that. And so, that's an extremely important value proposition to our customers, is taking those chaotic processes that are kind of going every which way, and who knows who owns what and where does it go after this, and controlling. And of course, we could do that through process flows in Macola 10. So moving on, what makes Macola different? Well, you have to go back to sort of the core tenets of the Macola 10 product. When I talk about our value props, and when I talk internally to our employees about being authentic to who we are as a company and who we are as a product, these are the things that I go back to. We're an all-inclusive product. And so by that, I mean that we don't nickel and dime you on various modules. We don't nickel and dime you on CRM functionality or business process management functionality. Those are all things that come out of the box with Macola 10. And that's definitely a differentiator. If you've looked at some other solutions, you know that typically the way pricing works in the ERP world is a base price plus 100 add-on prices. We've tried to get away from that kind of pricing with the Macola product and just give one all-inclusive. I think of it as a buffet model. You come into the restaurant and you can eat whatever you want off the buffet for a certain amount. Not everyone eats the same things, not everyone eats the same amounts, but everyone leaves full and satisfied at a buffet. Now, integrated functionality is the next core tenet. And what I mean by that is that we've got several key pieces to the Macola 10 product. The core ERP functions, the CRM functions, business process management, the GUI that we put on top through the browser, the automated events. All of those are key pieces, and they're tied together behind the scenes architecturally. And that provides us an end-to-end solution. And so you don't have silos, you're not manually moving data, you're not exporting and importing. All of that happens in the system behind the scenes. The next key tenet is web services, and this is a more recent architectural move for us in the last couple of years. Macola's been around a long time, several decades, and web services, of course, have not been around for nearly that long. And so for us to take the 1,500 screens that we have in Macola and rebuild those screens to utilize web services, That's a big effort. To take the different functionality that we have in Macola and to offer those up as APIs and web services using REST, that's a big effort. And so that's an ongoing issue for us, or initiative, and one that we're taking one bite at a time and trying to expose the most important things, the ones that you use on a daily basis, trying to expose those as web services as soon as possible. And of course, most of that's already done now. We do use a browser-based model, and by that I mean it doesn't have to be in the cloud, but it is in your browser. And so like most software these days, it's not based on a client that resides on your laptop. Rather, it's just done through your browser-based system, and that's certainly a much more modern way of interacting with a piece of software. And finally, this idea of anytime, any device, whether you're using a browser or your work computer, your laptop at home, your iPad, your phone, your tablet, your kid's Amazon Fire, it doesn't really matter. All of that is going to look basically the same when you connect to your Macola 10 system. In fact, we had an employee here, and I was kind of joking with him one day about Chromebooks, and I said, hey, you ever try to run Macola 10 on a Chromebook? And he sent me a picture later that night to my phone of him using his Chromebook to set up his Macola 10 system. So definitely some flexibility there, and that's just modern architecture, right? That's nothing that Macola is doing specifically innovative. It's just the way that the modern software is architected to be device agnostic. Going on to the next screen here, let's talk about Macola 10 functionality. We have several pieces of the offering, and I like to think of that in these 7 different pieces of the pie, pieces of the pizza here. Manufacturing, of course, is where we made our name and built our reputation. But project management certainly is something that you can do with your Macola 10 system because of the way that we leverage a product called Synergy, and that's built into Macola 10. Distribution, of course, is part of a lot of your businesses. Getting something into the warehouse and out of the warehouse is core to what we do. Now, the rest of your business, whether it's HR, quality, CRM, how you handle your tech support, your vacation days, all kinds of things that are needed to run your business can also be done in Macola. Your payroll, your finance, all of that is handled inside of your Macola 10 system. And one of the things that we talk about, probably won't talk about it too much today, but we have a different webinar that we cycle through from time to time where we talk about automation. And that certainly is a core piece of what we do, because anything that you can automate to save 10 minutes a day over a year is tremendously valuable. 365 days times 10 minutes, now you're talking some real savings. And the phrase that I like to use when we do that webinar is it's not necessarily the time value of money, but rather the money value of time. And when you start saving hundreds of minutes and thousands of minutes, and then you start shaving hours off of things, the money value of that time is just significant. Going on to the next slide here, we're going to have another poll, I believe. And the question is, what's the single most important factor for you when you're considering an ERP? So it could be anywhere access, it could be easy configuration, automation of workflows, real-time data, or that end-to-end functionality. Purple took the lead there right off the gate, but then it evened out a little bit. That's interesting. Purple's pulling ahead here. Give it another 5 seconds or something. All right, looks like it's leveled out for the time being. So that integrated functionality between core business functions, and that doesn't surprise me. We see that a lot, especially in companies that have grown to the size where they feel like different processes are siloed across the business. The idea that you can integrate those and have transparency across your departments, of course, is significant. The other one that got a lot of votes here is the automated workflows, and that's the one that I was just talking about. Anytime you can build in automation that's going to save time, eventually you get to the point where it's like having an extra employee, right? Because things are so automated that you don't need that person to go in and do things manually. It's like having an extra employee or 5 or 10 that don't call in sick and they never go home. So definitely important as well. Going on to the next slide here, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve pretty soon, but I will talk a little bit about how Macola can help you. You know, one of the things that we look at from a marketing perspective is thinking through the different personas at a business. That could be what the CEO cares about. It could be what the salesperson cares about. It could be what your IT or operations manager cares about. And those are all very different things. And so one of the things that we do is we create what we call workspaces, which are essentially different desktop views for different roles. And so a CFO might care about inventory turns. He might care about revenue, coming in the front door, care about expenses. That's very different than what the IT manager cares about or what the sales manager cares about. And then, of course, the CEO might want to see a rolled up view of all of those things, to see a high-level executive summary. And so we can do that through various personas at the workspace level. The next slide here is just some, I guess you would call these customer success stories. Some of the things, actually this is a good one considering the way that you guys just voted a minute ago, that we see increased efficiencies by automating those workflows. One of our customers, Reno Refractories, they actually have a video out on our website, I believe. And in that video, this is a quote from that video, he talks about how they had these disparate processes, and inventory was manual, and customer service, and order entries, and it was just all over the map, and shipping was handled in a different package. And so what they did with Macola 10 was to bring all of that together and create single sets of workflows across those departments and begin to automate those workflows. I like this next quote from Right Way Manufacturing. And Right Way, as you can see in the picture here, they make conveyor belts for shipping companies like FedEx and UPS. And I love when they say that, you know, what used to take us several days, 3, 4, 5 days, now takes us down to a half day because they've got that configuration ability in the system and they can get those quotes out the door. Another quote here, and this is my final one from GL Mazzetta, who of course makes various kinds of sauces and olives and things like that. In one department, we dropped 4 hours every day. And that's just by using workflows and document management. And the thing I love about that is every day, 4 hours, right? I mean, that's thousands of hours of employee time over a given year. So you can do the math on that and just think about the payback period and the ROI on that. All right. Well, like I said, I had the easy job. So I get to turn it over now to Steve Featherston. And Steve's one of our rock stars out in the field that we send out with customers and to demo our product, and we're lucky enough to get Steve on the call today, and he's going to walk through a demo of Macola 10. Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, folks. Today we're going to take a walkthrough of the Macola 10 quote-to-cash process. We're going to try to use what would be role-based interfaces to assume the roles of the people that are involved in each one of these steps, and hopefully show some of the automated features that can be used to help in these business processes. So what we're going to start with is basically what we're seeing here. We're going to start with an opportunity that's going to lead into a quote. That quote will become an order, and we'll go through the production shipping stage of this and invoice that order and hopefully receive cash at the end of the day. Now, this all takes place, as I mentioned, in somewhat of a role-based environment. So our role-based environment is going to start out with individuals. So we're going to end up starting with a sales rep, so to speak, and that sales rep is going to be Ron Calley up there in the upper left, and he's going to end up entering a sales opportunity. He might process that opportunity, create a quote for that particular customer, and review the quote maybe in the field. We're going to end up promoting that quote, which triggers an automation to the support group. We're going to see Bob Smith there, and he's going to end up looking over that quote and turning it into a sales order. He may review that, process that sales order, maybe print a pick ticket for something that needs to go out to the warehouse, but as soon as that sales order gets entered, an automation might take place that notifies the rest of the people in the company in key positions that they've gotten a big order. Now, as far as the purchasing department is concerned, he may review that order and what he may need and create purchase orders automatically for this to try to get the materials in the door for the production department to take over. And we're going to see Bruce here. Now, Bruce, when that order got put in, a production order was automatically created as a result of that sales order. He might confirm the inventory, release that order, and report production and get that product moved out to shipping. Shipping gets wind of that order coming in, sees the product coming to the shipping dock, ends up shipping the order, and that in turn would send out an automation to finance to then bill and invoice that order and hopefully later receive the cash on it. End result is, at the end of the day, the owner of the company or the CEO reviews the overall results and looks at that in possibly in a real-time dashboard or in his workspace, so to speak. So from here, we're going to go directly into the software and see Macola 10 in action. So bear with me a second while I show my screen. Okay, you should all be seeing my screen right now. This is our web-based interface. We are looking at a web portal, so I'm going to, a connection by a browser, and we're looking at a company that's a made-up company for today called Cambridge Compressors. We're going to end up building an air compressor. Now, this environment is set up to use role-based technology, so I can demonstrate what each person would see, what their workspaces would look like, and how they'd operate and do transactions within them. We're starting off today as Ron Calley, and you'll see I'm trying to use a highlighted mouse here to give you some focus as to what I'm pointing at or what direction I'm going with. That's not something you'd normally see in the software, but we are using it for today's purpose. So with Ron Calley, he may be talking with people over at Dove Equipment Corporation. He can type in their account number and get to the account card for Dove, and he might be working with an opportunity. And whether he's creating a new opportunity or he's working with an existing opportunity, we find features like that over in this monitor section over here where we can review their orders or their quotes or opportunities. And if we go into opportunities, we'll see any opportunity that is listed here for Dove Equipment. Obviously, we have a variety of different opportunities that we've done with them or are in process with them, and then again what stage of the opportunity we happen to be in, and if there's any follow-up dates involved in those types of things. We can from here create a new opportunity, which there's a handful of required fields for us to be able to get in there and put in the information that feeds the opportunities. But today we're going to take a look at opportunity number 123 here. Now this has to do with 30 horsepower compressors. It's kind of where we're going to start our process. Now, in an opportunity card, this opportunity is based on a different type of a sales cycle. We happen to be based on a 5-stage sales cycle here. You can have any type of sales cycle you want. It can be very short or very long. It can vary depending upon the product. But it's configurable. It's something that you can adjust in the software without really having to do any type of customizations. So this opportunity, if we look at it, Ron Calley is the owner of it. Dove Equipment Company is the account that's involved, and Javier Cabrera here is the contact. We're looking at an opportunity for $30,000 worth of compressor sales. We have about a 90% chance of that coming through, so our expected amount is calculated to $27,000. Now, we can track information within this opportunity that's important to it. For instance, maybe what item that it's involved with. We're working with a general contractor to have this compressor installed, so we might have a partner that's involved, American Electric Power. And again, we may be going up against some competition. We may see that, our competition, this American Showa here, they make very similar compressors, and they're always underbidding us, but they haven't been in business very long, and they might not be in business much longer. So you can tie, relative data back and forth to this. The opportunity card will also contain information about documents you may have contained or projects you may have contained with that opportunity. So anything you've gathered you can tie into the opportunity as kind of one place to collect it all. Now, when you create an opportunity, it creates a series of steps that we go through to kind of win the deal, so to speak. And that flow looks much like this. We have possibly a qualification stage, and we might do a needs analysis. Right now, we're in progress with the demonstration, much like I'm doing here today. Hopefully, at the end of that, you'd have contract negotiations and close the sale. And we have gone through the first two steps and are in the middle of the third with this company. So these are configurable. They can be any step or stage that your company happens to need for that particular process. But let's assume that we've furthered this along and that our opportunity has come to fruition, and we're going to end up creating a quote for Dove Equipment. So I'm just going to pop back over to Dove Equipment's account card, and we're going to go into the quoting functionality for that. So if I go into enter quotes, I'll see any quotes that are in the system for them. And I'm going to create a new quote by clicking on New Quote in the upper left here. Now, this quote can be tied to maybe a project, and the project might contain, let's say it's related to compressor sales. So if I just type bits and pieces of this word, grab the compressor sales and tie it to that. It might be involved in that particular opportunity. It's that 30 horsepower opportunity. And you can put in information, some notes in here. You can say the contact, who is involved, and is this a award probability for your funnel? Is it warm or is it hot? Or what potential is there for you to actually close this? There's an area for you to put in external notes for the customer to see, internal notes for you to see only. And when you save this, we get to the area where we can actually put in the line items. So we're going to put in a SLE series of air compressors, and we don't have any on hand. So it's going to end up going through this process and encourage us to then go and build them. Now I want to kind of kick everything off here that's going to happen immediately. So this all has to ship out of here today if we do actually get this quote. So I'm going to set all those dates appropriately and save this quote. That's quote number 158. And we get back to the main screen here. And I've been talking with Dove Equipment and talking with Javier, and they're going to send us a purchase order, and we did just receive that. So I might actually go to this quote and promote this quote into a sales order. So this is one of the first parts of automation here, is if I click promote on this, the quote is kind of put in place, but it's notified our next person in line that we have a quote that needs to be converted into a sales order. And before we get into that, I'd like to touch a little bit on what you can see as far as a mobile functionality related to Ron's position here. So if I were to open up maybe a mobile app, let me just pull up my mobile app here. Okay, so if I were to take a look at a mobile app here, one of the mobile apps that are included for Macola 10 is this Macola 10 app. And when it opens, it opens to what would be Ron Calley's desktop here of his inbox. Now these are inbox of tasks and workflow that he needs to complete. You can see at the top, the first one is a sales call. The second one is stage 3, the demonstration stage for Dove Equipment for that opportunity that we're working with. He's managing that through workflow. So if I click on that, I can get into that, that activity, and I can drop down and go to maybe the opportunity itself directly from here by clicking on the opportunity. And I could advance or add documents to this, or put notes inside of the workflow that's related, or mark it as lost, or copy it to a new one and create a new opportunity from that. I can also get to Dove Equipment's account card just basically by clicking on Dove Equipment, and it takes me to where they're located and contact information for them. I can actually use the map at the bottom to bring into Google Maps to be able to go and actually take me to that location. We go back to some of the other functionality that's available in the mobile app. We can check our workflow, which is where I just was with that inbox, or I can possibly go and say I'd like to create a new sales order from here. I'm going to end up seeing my recent orders. I can drill into them in detail, or I can go and enter a new order directly from this app. Now, this is available on your phone, can be done on an iPad, but it's also capable of being done in a native app, which is kind of what's in back of this screen. You have multiple choices here. Some of the nice feature functionality is you can actually do item inquiries and look up to see if you have a particular item in stock that a customer may be looking for. If I go and look for a bike AS, it'll end up showing that I have 958 in Massachusetts and 973 in California. So you can do rapid inventory lookups from within here. Now, if I was out seeing Dove Equipment Corporation and I wanted to see who else was in the area because maybe my call ran a little early, I could throw in my proximity function here, and it'll identify where in the country I am, and then again what customers are around me. So I can either go see Marlowe Manufacturing, or I can go over to John's Hot Dog Shop and meet with him, possibly also catch myself some lunch at the same time. But that mobile app can be very versatile for those types of things. Also gives you some heads-up displays depending upon what you need. We'll just touch on a brief workspace here, like the mobile sales dashboard. Now, this may not display wonderfully in the vertical position, but if I take and just kind of flip my iPhone around, I can readjust this to see my year-over-year comparison. I can see what my quote funnel looks like, what my previous day's sales were, and any past due quotes, and then again my top 10 customers being Dove Equipment was one of the ones that is pretty popular there. So a lot of the functionality that you can get inside of Macola 10 is also available on the mobile app itself. So we've created an opportunity, we've worked with our opportunity, we've had a quote put in the system, we've promoted that quote. Now the next step in this would be to see what Bob Smith's workspace would look like and how he'd handle the next step in this process. So we're going to end up logging in as a sales rep here, which is this blue tile. That'll end up logging me in as Bob Smith. You can see him in the corner, and his workspace looks considerably different than the workspace we were at before. He may have some incoming workflow. Workflow I like to describe as workflows like Outlook. It contains all of your email, and within workflow is all of the email messages or all of the requests that we're seeing here. And the one that we just got just a moment ago is this quote to order promotion. Now, that was triggered as a result of Ron putting in a quote and asking it to be promoted. It's now moved over to somebody who has the ability to do that. He may also have hotkeys here for various functions that he does frequently. He may have a process flow based method of working where he can select different features as he's going through the order entry to fulfillment to billing and invoice process. The point is that these are highly configurable by the end user to be whatever they need to be. Any of these hotkeys they can create, they can move around, they can adjust the size of and the functionality of without really being somebody technical in IT. So if we go and take a look at what his task is, his incoming workflow says he has a quote that he needs to promote. If I drill into that, we can see it was created by Ron Calley. It may be sitting at several different people's desks, but it is quote number 158, and we need to promote that into a sales order. So I might hop back to my workspace and I go to the functionality of swapping a quote into an order. We'll type in quote number 158. And as I tab through the fields, it should light up a button on the right to convert this quote into an order. It's going to ask me for the next available order number. That's going to be order number 857. And we're going to allow this to create the quote. Now, if the quote was for Dove and we're going to use it for someone else, I could actually just kind of swap out the customer right here and be able to put that quote, that order to a different customer. we're going to leave this with Dove Equipment Corporation. Take a quick look and see. It is for an SLE series of compressors. We do not have any of them in stock, so we're going to end up having to build that. Now, when I step out of this order, the next kind of step in the process, as we described in the PowerPoint, is that the purchase agent might get wind of this order being put in and start to research, what he needs to do to get parts in to satisfy the sales order and the production order that's going to be created from it. So when that sales order got put in the system, we also talked about an automation that would have taken place to notify other people in the company that this order has been put in the system. I think this is pretty important. When I've managed companies myself, I did a heads-up alert like this, and what it ended up doing was notifying people in production and purchasing and inventory and planning that this order is coming through, and people were already starting to plan for that order, and nobody really even had a chance to talk about it. It's just a heads up that something's going on and everybody should pay attention. Now, you can set these based on thresholds, where if the dollar amount of the order is above a certain amount, or if it's for a specific class of customer, you can have it triggered based upon that. But if you look, we're in as the purchase agent. We're in as Jack Davis at the moment, and he has a purchase to pay process flow here. He also has some hot tiles for creating purchase orders and printing purchase orders. But in his incoming workflow, he's got a heads-up alert showing up. And if I drill into that, I'll see that a large order was just placed for Dove Equipment Corporation, and I should check this out. So I've got a hyperlink to the order here. I might click on it, see the order, see the compressor that's involved, and decide I got to start figuring out if I have everything I need for this. Is there something purchasing needs to do for it? And he may in turn go to look for MRP. MRP is a great tool for helping you with planning what's coming down the road and making sure your supply chain is taken care of. If we go and take a look in MRP and in the results of MRP for what might be the TS series of compressors, it may tell me that I have 3 different parts that I need to get in order to take care of that sales order that was put in. Now I need 6 pieces of this part here, and I need 6 pieces of that one, and I need 1 of this assembly package. I might select all of these and decide that I'd like to have the system automatically create a purchase order for me. As I step out of this, it's doing just that. I may see this to the screen just so that I can catch the purchase order number that it was created. It is PO number 443. It's just created for that particular function. So we assume that PO goes to the vendor, and in turn those items get received in the back door, and he can kind of close off this heads-up alert and move on. But he's already done his part for that order, really without much in the way of communication. Now, if we talk about the next step in the process, we're looking at the production department. And we're going to end up logging in as Bruce Huntington. He's one of our production managers. And Bruce's desktop is, of course, unique to his own. In Macola, we can do lightweight manufacturing using the POP module, or we can use the shop floor module for complex manufacturing. But again, looking at his workspace, we have a heads-up alert that was sent out when that order was placed, and he also has visibility of that order and what needs to be produced. Now, by the fact that this is a compressor he's familiar with, he's aware that when that order got placed in the system automatically would go and create a production order for him. So he may end up finding that in his production schedule and determine, what he may see. I'm going to just open this up for a little bit bigger date and see if I can see that. It ends up being an unreleased order. So if we go take a look at what orders may have been created automatically for him, you can see we have an unreleased order here that was created by that sales order being entered. We're going to end up selecting that order, and we're going to release that order, and we're going to end up printing a production work order and maybe some other reports that need to be done for it so we can start pulling parts and getting the order out onto the production floor. This is all got to go out fairly quickly. You can see it's also tied to that sales order 857 and that customer, because there's a relationship between the order and the production order. So we're going to say OK to this. It'll end up printing us our reports that he needs to get out to the inventory group to start pulling product and start assembling this compressor. We assume that the compressor gets assembled, and we're going to end up reporting production on this. So we're going to take a quick look at that order, which is this one here. And I don't normally have labor tied to this. I can do it by setting it up in advance, but I'm going to throw some labor in here because it did take us some time to assemble this. I'm just going to kind of throw it in on the fly rather than have it pre-planned, just to show that you can do it as needed. We'll just kind of throw a little labor into this for the assembly of that product. And when I say that the order has been completed and hit save, it's going to end up moving that finished good order item into inventory. So right here we see it is a lot controlled item, and it's putting a lot number on it here, this KL164. And we're doing one piece of this and hitting save for that, and it will in turn go and update the sales order automatically to show that the quantity to ship would go from 0 to 1 because it's tied together. So let me just take a look now. So we roll through this process, we've produced the product, and the product would then be rolling over to the shipping dock to be sent out. We're going to end up logging in as Peter Bailey from shipping. So we're going to take over the persona of Peter in shipping here. We're logged in as Mr. Bailey, and his desktop, may be completely different. He may have, a shipping lineup report that he wants to work with. To give them an idea of what's coming next. You can see we have a heads-up alert that was put in when Dove Equipment's order was placed in the system. So everybody's kind of got an idea of what's going on. If I end up going to the shipping lineup report and look for what needs to be shipped out, I have quite a list of things here that need to ship out. So if I kind of refine my focus here to what needs to be shipped out today, I may end up seeing just the order that I need, which is there's my order 857 for Dove Equipment. That's what's got to go out today. And from this screen, we can do various transactions from it. We're going to end up confirming shipping this order directly from the hyperlink that's available on my report. So I've got a report that's actionable, a report that you can do tasks off of. And in this case, we're going to end up confirming ship this order 857. And there may be some, we're going to ship everything here, there may be some shipping charges that are involved. It's going to go out and select that same 164 lot numbered item from inventory, which was associated with it. And we end up shipping that out. And we end up with a freight charge. We'll say we got a freight charge in here of $100, and those are heavy, so we probably had to crate it. And we'll throw a crating charge in here, or a miscellaneous fee of $50. Hit save, and in doing so, that would have already created an automation that would go to give the people in the finance team kind of an idea that the product has left the building and they need to start billing it. So we're going to log off as Mr. Bailey and log in as Joe Whitemore in finance, and take a look at what his notifications have become. So here we are as Joe. Again, his workspace is a little different than everybody else's, and he may have put things on here that are important to him, some detail about control accounts or cash flow projections. But in his workflow, he's got that heads-up alert we've looked at, that there's a large order from Dove Equipment that they're processing. We've also got a notification, as Peter had selected an order for shipping, that we have an invoicing notification. Peter Bailey looks like he created it, but it did it automatically for him. It is order number 857. You ought to be able to drill into it and see that order directly from here, and he knows that he has to go through all of the steps required to build this order out. Now, usually people would be doing this in bulk. We're going to do this kind of step by step for one order to see the process, but I'm going to use these hotkeys that we see up the top here for billing it, printing the invoice, posting the invoice, and then receiving cash. So if we go to bill order number 857, I end up selecting the billing function. I type in my 857 and I hit save on this. It then says would I like to bill everything on it or certain items. I'm going to build everything. It's going to be shipped out, or the cutoff date for today is today's date. We do see the shipping charges that were put in by the shipping department. If they needed to be adjusted, we could at this point continue and adjust them. I'm going to hit save on that, and we have selected that order for billing. And we're going to go and run a series of invoices for maybe a range of orders that are in the system. Today we're just going to do it for this one and follow that all the way out the door, so to speak. So this prints a crystal type invoice, configurable. You can have your own company logos, names, addresses. It can look anything that you want. It just requires minor configuration of the report itself. If I step out of this, it's going to want to know, did they print correctly? This is your last chance to review the order before posting it. And we will go right on and post whatever invoices need to be posted for today, and we should see 857 show up in the list there. It does. That invoice has posted. So we've completed the billing function here, and he may at this point, say, okay, I'm done with that. I can just approve my billing function, and it drops off the list. Same thing with the heads up alerts, much like emails. I'm done with it. I've looked at it. It's disappeared. It's gone. These are just some nice touches back and forth to let people know between departments that tasks have been completed, and it really doesn't require people handing a stack of sales orders up to the finance department to be processed. We'll end up receiving the cash on this today. It's going to be a little bit early for receiving money, but I don't think that should be a problem. We end up doing a cash flow entry. And that cash flow entry starts with identifying what bank you're going to be dropping the funds into. And for this one, we're going to use Bank 1. And we're going to bring in about $28,000 in a check that the customer has sent us. And the check might be 888. And today's deposit date is going to be 1/18/2017. 1/18/2017. So we can tie a deposit number to it being the date. And I'm going to tie it to Dove Equipment Corporation. And as we step out of this, I'm going to end up matching that to the invoice. So if I click on the matching functionality, it's identified the $28,000 on the left-hand side, and we have invoice for today on the right. We'll select that one. It's going to be a balance difference here of $770. So they've sent us more money than, they owe us more money than they've sent us. So it's going to probably ask us what we want to do with that. So I'm going to end up matching and processing those invoices and that check together. And it's going to now ask, what do we want to do with those funds? Do we want to do it as a prepayment, as a discount, or do we want to leave it as a balance on the account? And that's my choice. I'm going to leave it as a balance on the account. When I do that, the payment disappears, the bulk of the invoice disappears, and the $770 remains there afterward for you to possibly receive more funds in on another payment. That kind of walks us through the process of quote to cash, and the next step here might be involving, let's say, the CEO having a look at today's results or what's been going on with the business. So we're going to log in as Glenn Weissman. He's the executive here, and we have a workspace set up for him, and we have some details on here that are important to him. We may get some heads-up alerts again on this side. Now, that was closed off by the finance person before, so he's not getting that. He can see that his AR has changed. It's going up a little bit. He had about $70,000 in sales before. Now we're up at about $103,000. So, he's seeing numbers change immediately in front of him for the transactions that are going on in the system. So if I want to take a look at some detail of this, I might go to an actionable area like this accounts receivable here and drill into a sales dashboard. And that sales dashboard would give me kind of a little bit more detail about what's been going on. This is the results of my sales reps year to date. I may have some detail here about my outstanding sales revenue. what I have done month to date, year to date, and what it compares to last year. But more importantly, I'm seeing my top 10 customers. And for this year, because we're in January, it's the 18th, I've only got a couple of them that have been buying from us, but already, so you can see by my results in the bar chart, our sales for January of 2017 has exceeded the prior year of 2016 by a fair amount so far for mid-month. And who's responsible for that? Well, it's been Dove Equipment and Bikerama. Now, as Glenn Weissman, maybe I don't know that much about Dove Equipment. I could actually click on them and I could Google that account and be able to get some information about what they do, but more importantly, I want to see what they're doing with my company. So I click on a customer snapshot and bring up some details specifically about that customer and how they interact with us. So if you look at the results, they started with us in June of 2016. They hadn't done any sales with us before that, and they've been buying from us almost every month, and then again in January they bought several times from us. They've been buying these compressors. They've been buying a variety of other things, and you can see that they have an outstanding AR of $18,000 right now in this 30 days or less bucket that we're looking at. We can see their average days to pay, what the gross profit is, maybe the sales year to date, sales last year, what the previous year gross profit was on these, and you can also see all of the open orders that they have in the system presently. Now these can be drilled into so you can look at the detail of them, and there may even be some notes on here that have been put in by sales or shipping. For instance, this order 821 has a note attached to it, and if I hover over it, it says that that order is on hold because the customer is sending an updated ship-to address. So there's communication going on in a lot of these reports about the orders and the statuses that are kind of revealed to all the different people looking at them as the processes go through the different steps. So if I step back out to Glenn Weissman's workspace here, he might have visibility of some of his control accounts. He may have some other charts and graphs that are interesting to him. These are all web parts. These are all elements that can be added to his workspace, moved around and adjusted, that come with the software. There's probably about 50 or 60 canned workspaces that come out of the box, and then a handful, maybe 20 or 25 widgets and web parts that can be dropped in that are related to specific functions. So I believe that this concludes the walkthrough of our quote-to-cash process, and at this point I'm going to end up passing it back over to Dan and Nick. Thank you folks for participating.
Thank you, Steve, for that. That's always nice to get a live demo, and I'm always kind of amazed if something doesn't go wrong just with Murphy's Law. So to make it through with no issues is impressive. We do have a bunch of questions that have come in here into the system, and I want to take a minute to start answering some of those. But before we do, let's give a couple of final thoughts around what you just saw. You know, Macola 10 is an all-inclusive product. It's a single solution. It's for customers that have never had Macola, as well as customers that have been running Macola Progression or ES for quite a while. We focus on trying to get out of the customization game and into the configuration game, right? So this ability for you to make your system do what you want it to do without customizing the code, without breaking open or opening the hood. You know, we focus a lot on automation, and from a interaction standpoint, a lot on personalized views, the way you view your data. And we now offer several flexible purchase options for you that I think you'll find attractive as well. All right, well, let's take a look at some of these questions. Let's just work down the list here, Nick.
Sure, and then the first one, Dan, is this recorded? And yes, this is being recorded, and you should be receiving a link to view this as a recording tomorrow. So if you need to see something again, or would like to invite a colleague to view it, you can forward it to them as well.
All right. The next one that I know I saw pop in and I just addressed a second ago is around if you're on progression or if you're on ES, is this the right webinar for you? Is this an option for you? Yes, absolutely. We are actively working with our current progression and ES customers to try to get them on the latest technology. And I know that's sometimes a very painful thing to do, and so we want to work with you to find how that'll work for your business. But Macola 10 is several versions up from your progression system. Progression was version 7. For some reason, we skipped version 8. I wasn't around to know why we did that 10 or 12 years ago, but version 8 never happened. Version 9 was ES, and version 10 is where we are today. So if you're on version 7, you're a bit behind, and we'd love to get you up to version 10. The next question down is about the legacy COBOL code. Has it been replaced? You know, any software company that's been around as long as we have, and Macola, by the way, is over 40 years old. So we do have a lot of legacy code. Some of it's COBOL, some of it's Visual Basic. I mean, there's a lot of code that's been created, several million lines of code in Macola 10. So no, it hasn't all been replaced. What we try to do is prioritize the features and functions that need to be replaced first and the ones that get the most use. And so, you know, we think about things like, well, what do companies do day in and day out? Well, they do things like order entry. They do things with their purchase orders. You know, those are the types of things that we look at and we want to prioritize. And you know, maybe they update their vendors, their customers, their prices. So those are the things that we've definitely replaced with web services. Some of the other stuff that's less traveled is yet to be done. And Derek Oakes, who is our director of development, he and the team are working furiously on that several million lines of code to make that happen. So we're getting there. It's not done, but that is definitely our intent. Next one down is around, actually I'm just going to pick a couple here. Do you have user groups? We do have user groups. I have to admit, I think they've faded out a little bit in the last year or so. You know, they were on LinkedIn. We used to run them with face-to-face groups, and that's something that if you want to do it in a non-biased way where it's being run by volunteers, sometimes that's hard to get it going. What we've done for the last couple of years is hosted a face-to-face user group meeting each year at Evolve, which is our conference in April, and we have a user group breakfast where the user group president will do some presentations and talk about what the user group is doing as a community. The next one down is what kind of time is involved with conversion from ES to Macola 10. That's a bit of a loaded question. It's a hard one to answer. We have a conversion process, and I will tell you that converting from ES is a bit easier than converting from progression just because of the leap that's being made from progression to Macola 10. So it's not quite as big of an undertaking, and so typically it involves an engagement with either the Macola direct services team or with a business partner who also offers services, and we can certainly quote you out something there. You know, if we're talking a single person, we're probably looking at a few weeks time to make that happen. Next one down, the services module. I assume by that you mean service management. The answer to that is no. The service management module is not complete. I do realize that we previewed that at Evolve last year. It was actually me that stood on stage and gave a preview of that. We've run into a lot of hurdles there, and most likely are going a different direction rather than writing our own. We may end up going a third-party route, but there is nothing that's imminent coming up in service management in the releases that just hit the street or in the next quarterly release that we have coming up. So maybe by Evolve we'll have some better news on that as we assess our options going forward. I know Nick's giving me the signal here to pull me off stage, and talk about, it's basically time to go. So we'll leave some of these other ones for answering after. The other one here that's a quick answer is this a free upgrade if you're an ES customer or progression customer? The answer is no, it's not a free upgrade, but I think we can find something that's going to work for you, especially if you're a current customer that's paying maintenance. A lot of customers now are going a subscription route, and so we can usually find a way to make that work where we take your current maintenance and we convert it to subscription or something like that. And typically the increase year over year is pretty palatable. And so that seems to be a very common path now for our customers. So Nick is going to give me the hook here and tell me it's time to go. So thank you guys again for coming. It's always nice to have a big group on the line. And Nick is usually really good about answering all of the questions via email. So he will follow up with that, I trust. And if you guys have any other questions, it's macola.com. Feel free to engage with us there, to call our sales team, to call our business partners, or to reach out via the website.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any other questions, you can also reach me, nick.mears@exact.com. Also, after you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a link for a survey. We'd love to get your feedback on what you thought of the demo, and we appreciate it. Any comments you have. Final note, we'll be emailing a link to view the recording of today's webinar, so you can see that tomorrow or pass it along. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great rest of your afternoon.